I'm here with Dave of Psycroptic to talk about the latest record, Divine Council, out right now on Prosthetic Records. How are you doing?
Not too bad, not too bad. It's quite early in the morning here, but up and ready to go.
So let me start off by this. I wanted to get your viewpoint on how much this album pushes the envelope, not just from a soundscape perspective, but also from a vocal approach. When you look at this record and you look at the previous albums, how far apart are they from those two point of views?
See, it's always a difficult question because we're right in the thick of it. So it's hard to step back and be very analytical about the differences between albums and how one album varies vastly from the next. Because for us, it's just a continuation. So we're always trying to, I guess, evolve as a band, bring new elements in while still maintaining the psychroptic sound. So it's quite hard to step back and be objective about the whole thing because it's hard for me to see it, and until someone points out, okay, well, this particular album sounds this way, and then it's vastly different. Not to dodge your question, but it's quite hard. It's quite hard. We just see the band. I guess I've used this analogy before: handing the baton from one album to the other. So we're moving on. It's still got the same sound as before, but we're handing it to the next one to, I guess, evolve and take it a little bit further.
Do you care about that evolution, or do you want that evolution? And when I mean care, I mean, do you work towards that evolution, or do you want that evolution to be a little bit more organic?
Oh, it's definitely organic. I think that's how we've stayed both relevant to ourselves and the fans over the years, because we naturally evolve. We're not following any kind of trends within music. We try not to get influenced by what's popular at the time, because that it's not really relevant to us. We're just trying to make good songs and keep ourselves interested and enthused in the band. If it's not exciting, then there's no point really. So to keep us enthused and excited, the music's got to always remain fresh, and that helps. That keeps it organic.
When I looked at this, when I was listening to this album, the multifaceted vocal approach, that's what I'm calling it, multifaceted vocal approach on this record has an incredible impact. I mean, you can't listen to the album without feeling the impact that you get from that sense, in terms of what adds to the overall atmosphere, to what adds to the sound, what adds to the record. Did that vocal approach, or the idea from that full multifaceted vocal approach, was that there from the beginning, and then the other pieces came in, or you created everything else and then you felt like this approach was the best suited one for the sound that you had put together?
I think the idea came from we did an EP, or 2-track EP back in 2020, and we introduced, I guess, the dual vocal attack there to some degree between the two Jasons, and that seemed to work very well. And the logical choice was, well, do we do this? Well, it wasn't really a choice in the end. It was pretty evident that we should move forward with the album with, as you said, the multifaceted vocal approach. I guess longtime vocalist Jason Pepiot crafted all the lyrics, the phrasing, how it works in with the album, and then fully recorded all of his tracks, and then essentially gave the structure and the guidelines to Jason Kaiser, who then also recorded the whole album. And then between Peppo and Joe, who wrote the music, engineered and mixed it, they, I guess you could say, crafted all the vocal phrasing together, and yeah, turned it from two identical tracks to what it is on the album, which is, you know,
That's incredible.
it's another instrument itself, you know. You're
Yeah,
treating the vocals like another instrument.
and that approach doesn't seem simple at all. I had no idea that that's how you guys approach it. That makes everything sound now even better, because that's a craft in its own to pull that. Did you go in with some doubts on how that was going to work?
No. I had the confidence in both Peppo and Joe that they would come up with something pretty amazing, you know, because everyone's very dedicated to their own individual performances. So if it doesn't meet the standards, it's not going to make the album. And I guess the recording process was somewhat different for this album as well. You know, we were all in different parts of the world, in different stages of lockdown at the time. So all of our interactions musically were remote. So it didn't make it feel any more weird than the whole situation.
That's hard.
And you know, so there was a lot of feedback amongst ourselves during the process. But both Joe and Jason worked very hard on crafting the overall vocals on the whole album.
The album has a great sense of balance and consistency from the beginning all the way to the end. It's not like it's stronger at the beginning, weaker at the end. It's just very consistent throughout. How do you create a sense of consistency, but at the same time still keep the record engaging so that the listener doesn't feel like every song has a similar vibe to it?
I guess the overall ethos is trying to write the best song at the time. You know, that's what you're trying to do. Every time you write a new song, you're trying to make it your best song ever. You know, it's hard to do, and it's impossible to do. But if you still go into it with that sort of logic, each song is going to be as strong as you can possibly make it. So they will stand alone, individually stand alone. And then once you've got the collection of songs, you know, we're not a band that writes, okay, we're going to write 20 songs and pick the 10 best. It's like, why do that? Why don't you just write the 10 best? Like, once we've finished writing enough songs for an album, we put the album out. You know, we don't put songs on a shelf and, you know, we'll come back to that one. That's not how we work. It's like, it takes us long enough to write all of the songs. As soon as it's done, it's like, cool, that's it, put it out. So in that regards, we're always striving to, you know, write a great song. And if the song stands alone, then when you put it together with another collection of songs, it should be logically, that's pretty strong. And the track order is always something of debate.
You pause there, debate. Like,
yeah. So everyone in the band has different, I guess, quote unquote, favorite songs and favorite, you know, their preferred track order. So it's always, there's a lot of good toing and froing when we're trying to figure out the best running order for the album, which is a good thing. You know, if the songs are strong enough, it's going to work. It's not going to, it's not going to feel like, oh, the best songs are at the start and then it fades out. And everyone, you know, definitely does fight to some degree to get their preferred choice. And I think on this album, we all agreed that Render Sundo should be the first track on the album. So that was something.
The consensus.
Yeah, and that was the only one, I think.
So yeah, I can see how that goes. You mentioned earlier that it's hard for you to maybe see the forest from the trees, is a good expression, because you're so deeply involved in the creation of the album. But in the back of your mind, you must want the listener to take something away from the listening experience. So What would that be for a record like this?
I guess just in the end, you want honest feedback. Um, it's not really doing you any favors. It feels good when someone says, it's a killer album. That feels good, but that doesn't really. That's just surface level. So if someone comes away with a like a deeply thought out statement about the album that makes me pause and think, then it's worthwhile. It's whether their comment is positive or negative. If it's like a well thought out statement, opinion, whatever it might be, that does mean a lot. And it's like, okay, cool. Well, maybe this band does have an impact in some way. One of my faults is I'm always looking forward. I find it a little bit difficult to pause and reflect and get enjoyment out of the thing we've just done. So in my mind, the album is done. I'm raring to go on the next material. So I'm already wanting to start work on the next album. So again, not to circumvent your question, but
yeah, no, but you have to take some time to enjoy the moment, right? Like,
I think that comes when playing the songs live, because then you get transported back to the moment of the album and the material from the album. So, I try not to get into the comment trap of trying to just find the positive comments about the albums or read the reviews. Sometimes it's hard not to, but at the end of the day, it's like, well, doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter. We're going to continue doing what we do, and as long as it's enjoyable for us, and we think we're creating quality music and quality songs, we'll keep doing it. And the second it becomes a bit more like a chore, or we're just going through the motions, it's like, hey, maybe it's time not to do this anymore.
When I do these interviews, I don't always get a chance to talk about drums. So I want to take the fact that you're here to talk a little bit about the drums on this record. Did you have a vision board of what you wanted the drum sound to be like on this record?
No. I guess the drum parts, like I never really think about the drum sound. To me, drums are just like a tool. I'm not a drummer that obsesses over gear and obsesses over sounds and things like that. It's more like you pick the correct tools for the job. So I guess I would be a quote unquote professional drummer. So I'm going to have professional gear that should sound of a professional quality. So you have to trust the recording engineers that you work with, and let them do their job to get the best sounds out of, so I don't want to sound blasé about it, but if everything you've got in front of you is of a very good quality and you're working with someone who is highly skilled, you're going to get a pretty good result in the sounds department. So I didn't want to micromanage things. It was my job to come up with the best parts and the best performances. So of course that's really what I'm going to obsess over. And in terms of the performances and the parts, I like to let the parts evolve naturally. So when I have new material, I'll play the songs every day, slightly differently, and try to let the parts, I guess, everything rise to the surface. And the parts that start to stick around, so to speak, that's how the song evolves. So it develops, and so I'm usually working on the parts right up until we record it. And once the track is recorded, that's how it is. That's like the full stop. It's like, okay, that's the part. So it was a particularly a different approach in terms of how we actually recorded it. We did 3 separate recording sessions over 3 months, just because that's how it kind of worked out with the particular lockdowns in our city. It did give me a chance to really focus on, I guess, 3 tracks at a time. So I would say I was the parts were the most refined of any albums that I've done with Psycroptic. They were, instead of working on a full album of material at one point in time, I was working on 3 songs at a time to get them, I guess, the parts as musical as possible. So that was a little bit of a luxury in a kind of unusual situation at the time of recording. Yeah.
You mentioned that you didn't micromanage that aspect. Did you micromanage any other aspect?
No, I mean, you have to trust who you work with, or what's the point? It's the micromanaging thing. Well, I hope I don't do it, because then it's like, why are you letting your inferior skill set interfere with this person who you've chosen for their talents? It's just stroking your own ego. So no, I hope I didn't. Everyone in the band's got very strong opinions about their particular parts, and you definitely fight for certain things. I wouldn't call that micromanaging. I'd just say that's, I guess, believing in what you've come up with, and if you can't back it up, or someone convinces you otherwise, then you have to change your position on
it. The album is not a concept record, but there's definitely a lot of themes that resurge throughout the entire album. What was the idea behind those themes, and how do you get to them? What inspire the lyrical content?
Okay, that is definitely a Jason question, because he writes everything. But from what I understand, I guess this is another example of the micromanaging thing. Like, he's the vocalist and lyricist, and we found in the past that his vocal performances and vocal phrasing works way better if he actually writes all the lyrics. So in the past, each of us have probably had a hand in writing some lyrics, but then it just came to the point, it's like, well, it doesn't really make that much sense if it's been detrimental to the actual phrasing. Then the logical solution is you write all the lyrics and the phrasing. So I think in a lot of regards, the lyrics are kind of reverse engineers from the phrasing. It's like, okay, here's what the phrasing needs to be, and then work backwards to the actual lyrics. So yeah, Jason has full autonomy on the lyrics and the subjects. Obviously, if it wasn't something we agreed with or didn't think was kind of fitting to the band, we'd probably suggest, but that hasn't happened yet. And I think he does like to deal with a lot of darker concepts about how humanity is kind of going down a
shithole.
Yeah, a path that he doesn't really agree with. He just said he's a death metal hippie. It's all about how
death metal hippie. I've never heard that expression before, but I really dig it.
Yeah. It's just his opinions on how we're kind of fucking the earth and we don't appreciate it. That would be the overall
theme.
Yeah.
And
if we were to sum it up, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that theme, to be honest. I think it's impossible to not see it happening in front of us. One last question for you. 20 years, 8 records. What do you, if you were to call it quits today, what would you take with you? What has been the biggest learning experience that you've taken from those 20 years, those 8 records?
I think it's the travel. which might seem like a bit of left of center answer, but the band has allowed us all to travel and see places that we would never ever been able to, which, you know, it's a positive byproduct of the music that we create, that we get to go around the world and visit cool countries and meet lots of different people. And I think, you know, that has definitely had an influence on the sound, because, you know, travel does open the mind, it broadens all your horizons. So it's definitely opened up a lot of doors, both, I guess, physically and metaphorically, for all of us. So that's been the biggest benefit and the most impactful thing on my life, I think, is the 20 plus years worth of travel playing music.
Wow. Well, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed listening to the record. Great album that you guys put out on August 5th on Prosthetic Records. Dave, thank you once again. All the best. And I'm very sorry if you're up really early or really late because of me. So
No, it's totally fine.
my apologies.
I get up quite early anyway. Thank you so much for making the time.
No, my pleasure. My pleasure. All the best.
Okay, you take care.
Take care.
Bye.